say me. Say it for always. All right. It is Monday, August 19th, and we're going to call the Select Board meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. with Rosie Kennedy, Bill Wilson, Bill Olson, and Caroline Beaulieu in person. We currently do not have Tom Myers, but if he joins online or in real life, we will let everyone know. All right. First things first, we do it every week. We're excited for folks to jump on board and volunteer their time. So our current board and committee openings. On the Conservation Commission, we have 1 opening. On the Council on Aging, we have 2 associate openings. The Cultural Council currently has 1 opening. The FinCom, A Good Time Every Time, with John McGrath, has 1 associate opening. The HDC has 1 opening for a 3-year term. The Historic District Commission has 2 openings for 3-year terms, 2 openings for 2-year terms, and 1 must be a resident of the Historic District, and 1 must be a resident realtor. The Human Rights Commission also has 1 at-large opening. At this time, I will look to my other board members and the town manager. Anything to report? Rosie, I'll start with you.
Hi, yes, I do. So, first thing is that the Conservation Commission meeting was canceled. Somehow it didn't get posted, and that's unfortunate because there was planned to be follow-up with brouhaha over on Bridge Street. So their next meeting will be August 28th, and hopefully things will go smoothly then. Council on Aging had a meeting on 8/7, and we elected new officers. So Laura Studley is now the new chair. Congratulations to Laura. And Dick Hewitt remains the vice chair. Congratulations to Dick. And Penny Wingate remains the clerk and minute taker extraordinaire. We have some reappointments, and I believe both of those members have gone to be reappointed, or maybe just one. We'll see. And interestingly, on 8/15, I was invited to join the tour of the Manchester Elementary School. It's very interesting. It's a beautiful new school. It's 77,000 square feet, big classrooms, lots of new furniture. It provides education for K through 5. It has separate play areas for the kids. Interestingly, Essex said that this school was built for 350 kids, so it's a pretty good-sized school, 77,000 square feet. It was built for 365 kids, and they have about 220 kids in the school now. So there was a big drop when COVID occurred and in their school population, and it hasn't picked back up again. So that's interesting. Would like to understand the reasons for that. Currently, we have 679 kids in the elementary schools, and the proposed new school will be for 740 kids. So what can you say about a new school? It was beautiful. Their school cost about $52 million, and they got about 25%, maybe a little bit more from the state. So that's an interesting figure, looking at the difference in price. And as we go along, we'll be able to talk more about the cost of this to the residents of Hamilton and Wenham. So that's pretty much it for tonight.
Did they mention why they chose that school to visit, seeing it was smaller and
Because it was new.
is no?
And it was the same OP architects and
okay, that makes
OPM. Yeah, and actually the lead interior designer, Emily, the JCJ team, Emily was the lead interior designer. And so she focused on a lot on the interior aspects. And like I said, what can you say? A new school is beautiful. It's very functional. No tremendous bells and whistles, but it was interesting to see it and look at the price tag and compare it to our potential new school and the price tag for that. So.
Yep.
Bill Olson, anything from you?
Not tonight, but on vacation.
Well, staying on the themes of school, so as everybody knows, there's a couple of big projects going on here in Hamilton. They've got the athletic field still looking for completion of July of '25. A lot of clearing. I actually drove by there a couple days ago, and you know, there's been a lot of clearing, and they're going to repurpose some of the soil for where the tennis courts go. So they're getting really creative. I do hear that. You know, some of the fields will start to get laid, and it'll look like, hey, they could play on that, but, you know, not yet. So they are targeting July of '25 as the end date, no longer than that, providing.
The full turnover at one time, or are they gonna do a phased
I
turnover?
think it's a full turnover, is my understanding.
Okay.
Second bigger project, are their elementary schools. You know, they've been doing soil testing. They've been doing, you know, neighborhood traffic studies, things of that nature. I know they just left Module 3, they call it, which is the feasibility. They're into schematic design with a goal of submitting schematic design. That's where, you know, the building comes to life. You can see what it looks like, how it lays out on the property and everything around it. That's scheduled to be done in December, but they are looking to have stuff and start communicating with the community on progress sometime in the fall. So we'll probably learn more about that. Had the opportunity to go to the CPC meeting on August 8th, and I'm sure this is on the agenda later, but they did approve the $1.5 million gap funding for town hall renovation. So that's all I got.
That's great. Two things. I did get an update from David Smith on the Board of Health. The much anticipated revised regulation for keeping of animals, permits, and stable coop licenses has been passed by the Board of Health and will go into effect in September. As a reminder, that had not been looked at since 1989. And I've asked David to share a copy with us so that we can, you know, take a look. But I think a lot of it was, you know, sort of consistency and relevancy, you know, because things have changed here in the last 35 years. I've changed in the last 35 years. The septic loan program, I think the official announcement of availability is coming later this month. So that will officially be online for folks who want to take advantage of the program. And we're excited to have that available at that time. I did get some additional comments from folks. I had a couple of calls this week about folks really wanting to provide feedback directly to UTEAL as it in regards to the downtown planning and also the dovetailing with 3A. And so just a reminder, if you send us an email to myself or to Joe, we can certainly make sure that you have the opportunity to engage with them in whatever way you're hoping to, as well as continue to publicize any public meeting opportunities with the group. It is certainly not our intention to keep that, you know, to a closed group. It's just a matter of, you know, flagging that you would like to be as a part of it, and we'll do the best we can. Anything from you?
Real quick, the board last month voted to implement enhanced water restrictions and asked for a little bit of a report after about a month. So I will tell you that according to the DPW director this morning, the current discharge in the river is at 14.1 cubic feet. Typically, based on our town bylaw, chapter 25, and our regulations based on our permit usage of withdrawals, we typically enforce restrictions when the river is at 52.5 feet. So we're way below where we should be, and that's why they asked for the enhanced restrictions last month. They're still called for. He did say the recent rain seems to be helping a little bit, but feels they should remain in place for the time being.
Appreciate the follow-up. Do we have a sense of, did we impact it in the 30 days from our actions, or, you know, to get to the 14.1, or hard to measure that, or?
It's hard to measure because he was looking at the most recent reading on the river, and it's rained a little bit since,
Okay.
you know, in that time. So
Yeah.
we don't know if it's our restrictions or the rain that's helping, but it's probably a combination of both.
Yep.
To that end, I know I wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't know if this came up. But when we did goal setting, what was that, 5 weeks ago? Water was obviously a big topic that's come up multiple times. I think there's a desire from the community to better understand where we are, what we've done, and where we're going. I know that we plan to put some of that information in one of the upcoming quarterly water bills. But Joe, I mean, one of his top sort of priorities for the year is sort of continuing to make progress on the accessibility, availability, and quality of the water, as well as sort of stay on top of what our sort of 10 to 15-year plan is. So stay tuned for more information there. It's certainly something that's top of mind. The more restrictive we get, the more questions we have about the future, and I hope folks know that we're not unaware of that here. Cool. With that, I will move on to public comment. As a reminder, public comment, 3 minutes on a topic not on the agenda. If the topic is on the agenda, I ask that you hold comments till the relevant portion. At 3 minutes, we will stop folks, but also we typically do not respond as a board to public comment unless there's a clarification that we can make. Any public comment here or online? Looks like we have Deb.
I don't see anybody online putting up their hand.
Hi, Deb Safford, 46 Maple Street. Just two quick things. One is on the school committee. I know that, Bill, you're the liaison to the school committee, and I'm just going to continue my plea. I've said it before. I just want to say it again for the public record, that I'm hoping that there can be a town effort with the school committee to have a second option for the vote in April. I'm concerned that all the eggs are in one basket, which is a very large expense, and it's very nuanced in the community. There's a lot of emotion about it, and I think there's a lot of drive that, it may not pass, but if it doesn't pass, then there should be something else that can help the kids. I don't think anyone in the community is against the kids. I think we're against the idea that we must go into deep debt and we must have this solution or you don't love the kids. And I just want to be on the record again and again asking the town, the select, you guys are really, especially the liaison, they don't necessarily want to do it because they voted for the new build, but I think it would be incumbent upon the town to provide an option so that if that one doesn't pass, there can be a secondary vote that's done right then and there, that the town will incur X amount of debt because this is what it might cost to do renovations of these properties. So please consider, as representatives of the larger community, not just the school committee, providing that as an option. I think that would reflect well on the consciousness of where we are in the community right now.
I'll just say this, because I think we've told the school committee we'd be very clear on this. We will continue to provide numbers for alternatives, but there will not be, it's not like there's an A and a B and we vote for which one we want and that one goes forward. The only thing going through at town meeting, because of the way the process works, is the one that the school board put forward. That's what we have to vote on, and we can vote it down, but we can't vote for this option versus this option because the process that we've gone through with the Mass School Building, with the state, has required us to make a choice already and go forward. And the only thing we're voting on at that meeting is whether to fund it.
I understand that that's a requirement for the funding, but I think it's also true, correct me if I'm wrong, that we can choose to go into debt ourselves without the
Yes.
Mass
Right.
state. And so that would be my request, not to have it be that there are two competing votes, but that there's like a, what do they call that voting, where, what's it called, where you if this one
Ranked
doesn't.
choice.
What's it called?
Ranked choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Something like that, so that there can be an option, because maybe they both would be turned down. But it's possible that people would vote to go into debt for $50 million to renovate the schools, knowing it's 100% on the community, versus 150, 100 of which, or 80 of which is for the town. Do you know what I'm saying? So as a ranked choice, otherwise, it would be my understanding that if that gets turned down, there has to be another vote, and another warrant, and another, and we get set back. So I just don't want it to be, I've been here before when that middle school was being built, and it was contentious, it was voted down, it was voted down, it was voted down, and finally it passed. And I think if people don't want that to be the process. So I'm just suggesting if there's an alternative that would be not in conflict with that vote, not to override that vote, but to allow an option, I think it would reflect that there's a consciousness about how we want to spend our dollars. So I would just ask that. The second thing is just similar with the UTIL vote. For the town center, again, if there can be options within the warrant or parsed out options, because everything is commingled with the school, with the 3A, zoning and with the town center, if everything is thrown in together, we might have just wasted a ton of money and not get to move the ball forward even a little bit. So since I am on that committee, I'm saying it there, I'm going to say it here. Please consider, I don't know who the decision makers are for that warrant, but if we could please have multiple warrants for the different pieces, then we can really isolate the 3A consequence for the zoning versus the changes for the town center as defined by this box. So it's a similar thing, to please allow us to have real votes, real choices, and not something that's like attached in, and then it becomes, you know, you don't love our kids, you don't want to support the town, you don't like people moving into the community, like these false votes. So please, if you could consider, I know I'm early to that, but I just think it's important to remember that we would like to have choices that are authentic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody online?
Nobody online.
Anything else in the room? Cool. All right. Moving on to the core of our agenda. First up, we have Corinne Kale coming to talk to us about elections. Oh, I just skipped the consent agenda. Hold on, Corinne. It's not your turn. We only have one item on the consent agenda, and it's approving the tour to Greenbelt, which runs through Hamilton. This is not the first time. Is that the truth?
No, it's been many times.
Many times. So if anybody would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, I would accept such
Yeah,
things.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Awesome. Any discussion? Feel good? Cool. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. All right, this time for real. It's your turn.
For real. Thank you, Corinne Kale, Town Clerk. Clerk's office is all things elections right now. We have the state primary, September 3rd, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow. And the state presidential election is November 5th, 7 weeks from tomorrow. So we're thick into it. Tonight I'm here for 3 reasons. 1, to provide election deadlines and reminders to you and the public. 2, to request your signatures on the state primary warrant that must be posted by August 27th. And 3rd, to request your approval of early voting hours for the November 5th state election. I have to get those approved by the Select Board. Number 1, deadlines and reminders. As a reminder to everyone, since 2022, voters have 3 options for how they want to vote. They can vote by mail, they can vote early in person at the Patton Homestead, or they can vote on Election Day at the Rec Center gym. Regardless of which option a voter will choose, the deadline to register to vote is this Saturday, August 24th. The clerk's office will be open from 9 to 5 for voter registration. For the September 3rd state primary, all is going well. Happy to report that. For those choosing option 1 to vote by mail, we have already mailed out over 1,200 ballots and received back about 400. I'm asking voters to please return their ballots as soon as possible by mail, in the drop box, or at the clerk's office in person. I worked with Bobby Gates, and he put something out on Facebook today on my behalf because we just want to try to get them in, to get them coded, to get them put in alpha order, to get them ready for Election Day. The closer to Election Day they come in, it just makes it a little bit more chaotic on our part. But voters do have until 8 p.m. on Election Day to return a mailed ballot. Voting option number 2, the in-person early voting, kicks off this Saturday, August 24th, at the Patton Homestead in the clerk's office from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So we're open for last day to register to vote, 9 to 5, but within that, 10 to 4 is in-person early voting. And it runs all next week, Monday through Friday. The complete hours that we're open in the clerk's office, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 8:30 to 4:30, Tuesday from 8:30 to 6:30, and Friday 8:30 to 12:30. Those hours are posted a few places around and also on the town clerk webpage if anyone needs to look it up for yourself or for anyone else. The third option for voting is the traditional way of voting on Election Day, and the hours remain 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Rec Center gym. So again, 3 options, 3 different sets of kind of dates and deadlines. And all of it is posted on the clerk webpage. My second reason for being here, the state primary warrant. Joe has in the packet there a document to be signed by each of you. And then we will have that posted around town, just to comply with state law. Have to do it. Third reason I'm here is early voting hours for the November 5th state election. For the primary, we have to do in-person early voting for just 1 week. But for the November election, we're required to hold 2 weeks of in-person early voting. Second week is the exact hours of the clerk's office hours. But the first week of early voting, because we're a community between the size of 5,000 and 24,999 voters, the hours that first week can be less than the usual business hours, but not less than 50% of those hours. So for Hamilton, that equates to 20 hours, and that's what I'm here to present and have you vote on. I'm recommending the same hours we had in 2022, pretty much like 4.5 hours a day, so Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, from 10 o'clock to 2:30, Tuesday from 2 o'clock to 6:30, and Friday from 10 o'clock to 12:30. So it's a total of 20.5 hours. I'm confident it'll meet the needs of our voters. In 2022, most early voters voted that second week. Very few showed up the first week. And in fact, voting in person early is not very popular in Massachusetts. The data is around 8% of voters are opting to vote in person early. They're loving vote by mail, and they still show up on election day. Here in Hamilton, we still have about 50% who show up on election day, or slightly over 50%. So again, those are the hours that was in your packet for the reduced hours, only the first week. The second week is the full office hours of the clerk's office. Any questions?
Just a comment, I did notice that the voter roll is down to 4,400, huh?
So what?
That, the voter numbers, I'm sorry.
No, we're at about 5750.
I must have misread, maybe that was
Yeah.
for a particular precinct, I apologize.
Oh, yeah, could be. Yeah, no, we're staying pretty constant.
Should we take a vote on this right now?
Yeah, I think that do you want 3
Ye-
separate votes or one vote to encompass all 3?
Oh, no, the only one I really need a vote on is the early voting hours
You
for,
don't need-
for
okay.
November 5th, first week of early voting, because the warrant is just signatures, and the other things were just updates.
So it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday?
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday,
10 o'clock to 2:30.
then the evening
And then
hours.
on Tuesday, when we're open later, it's 2 to 6:30, so it
Okay.
stretches it to the 6:30, and Friday, 10 to 12:30.
Okay. So a motion to approve the early voting hours for town hall.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, any additional questions, comments, or concerns? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome so much. Yep.
No, I appreciate that.
Could you restate the question?
Yeah, the question has to do with the voters who are currently inactive. Because again, when it comes to the census that folks receive in January, that is a requirement by law, so that my office knows who lives here. And if you don't live here, you can't vote here. So we process all the census forms, and then by June, if someone hasn't responded for the census by law, those individuals become inactive voters, and then we spent more money to send out the confirmation mailing cards. And we have gotten a fair amount of those back. So those individuals do then get restored to active voting status. But now, going into Election Day, there will be plenty of inactive voters. And all that means is they have to show me an ID. They have to prove it. That includes it's all. Yeah, they're still in that
If
number.
you're in this book, you're
You're active.
active.
Inactive voters do not come into that book. The street list, again, another
Check the book to make sure you're in the book.
state requirement. And I tell you, it's, the people really underestimate the value of submitting that census form, because We publish a separate one of those street lists for the public safety departments, police and fire. The books that are for the public do not include children or public safety officials. The ones that the public safety officials have do. So when they show up, if there's a fire or there's a call, they can immediately look in that book and know if there are children residing in that property, how many people are there. I mean, you'll see that on TV with fires. They're still trying to account for the individuals. Well, if nobody knows the individuals, I mean, it's only in one place, the census. You can purchase it in my office. But thanks, that's a good question. That is only active voters.
I didn't realize that. I'm in it.
Or you can look at it right now.
Want to check? Okay.
So the second item is the approval of the September 3rd state primary warrant.
We don't need a vote. They don't need to vote on the warrant, they just need to vote.
We just need to sign
We
it?
just need to sign it, which
Okay.
is in our packet here. It's in here for it to be signed, so.
All right, so we will take a look at that after the meeting. Nobody leave until you've looked at it. Can you vote, Deb? All right, never fear, Deb can vote. All right, the next item is reviewing the request for a sale of a cemetery plot to a former resident. Take it away, Joe.
Yeah, so you have in your packets a letter from a Cynthia Ginsburg, currently at Peabody. She has asked basically for the select board to consider granting her permission to buy a cemetery plot near where her family has a plot. The board's done this in the past when a request is made by somebody who maybe not currently live here, but has deep ties to the community, has lived here in the past. It's up to the board.
I think I've only done 2 of these, and we had one from a gentleman in Florida last year that we said no to, and there were reasons.
You never lived here.
He'd never lived here. This is someone who was raised here?
Graduated from Hamilton Wenham Regional High School in 1975. Much of her family is buried here, so.
We've always approved people who lived here,
Right.
since I've been on the board.
Live or lived?
Lived,
Past tense.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
At one point.
So they grew up here and
They
then
grew up here,
perhaps
that's right.
moved
Yeah,
on. and-
But not, people had not lived here.
Okay.
But in the last, since, that's 7 years now, but that's just my experience.
Do we have an official policy on this? or should
The
we?
official policy is up to the select board.
It's up to select
It's
board.
just select board?
Yeah, the official policy is that only residents can buy cemetery plots unless approved by the select board.
Okay.
And so the board, since I've been here for 6 years now, the board's MO has been to approve people who have lived here previously and still have some connection to the community.
Why don't we start with a motion?
I move that we approve, I don't have it in front of me,
Yeah, sorry. I can
The
open it
sale
up.
Cynthia
of-
What's the
Ginsburg?
name?
Cynthia
Cynthia
Ginsburg.
Ginsburg.
request for a plot at the Hamilton Cemetery.
Second.
Second. Okay.
So, just quick question, any discussion?
Yeah, no, let's
Because
discuss.
overall, I totally support it. But in general, from a capacity standpoint, are we good at the cemetery? Do we think we'll need to expand in any way and get restricted by?
We're good for the we're good for the moment. Depending how many people buy plots, we may have to
We
look
asked
at it.
Tim
And
this
Tim,
question.
Tim is, we've asked Tim this question in the past. There's an adjacent piece of land that doesn't have street access and might be available for sale, but it hasn't come forward yet as an emergency. So,
So we asked Tim this question a few years ago. He said he wasn't concerned about it, and we also upped the cost of the
buying the plot, so.
plot, so.
Got it.
It's just one grave site that they're
And
looking for?
it says an additional family plot. So I think that you can bury 2 people in a plot. Tim
four?
Olson is on,
The family's
Tim
four,
Olson,
I think.
It's a great
Tim Olson's online. Tim, would this be for 4 burial sites or 1? There he is. Did you hear?
So I'll speak on behalf of my mother. We were looking for the 6 cremation plots.
Okay.
6 cremation, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same as a 4 non-cremation.
So remind me, there was the second one that we had, and which again, I think we approved it, but the question was if you, remember the one that was like, if you get 4, will the people that are in there also planned to be Hamilton residents or former Hamilton residents, or then does it just sort of become
I think it's
Whomever-
Generally becomes, it's family, because
Okay.
most of the people that want to be buried in Hamilton Cemetery have family connections to the town, and they want to be buried
Yeah,
near their
we
loved
can
ones. and-
control the, we control
Well,
the purchase.
The purchase. Remember last time, and again, this is
Right.
not y'all's, it was the one that was like,
Right.
I'm gonna buy one, and then my sister-in-law's brother will be, and we were like, wait a second.
I don't know, that's what, our policy doesn't allow us to
Yeah,
control.
yeah,
who
yep,
gets
totally
buried.
fine.
It's a who- And I agree with you, that's a thing maybe we could take out, but right now it's about who
Right.
purchases the lot,
Yep,
and what the plot, and then once it's purchased, it becomes a family plot.
okay.
Okay, so I have questions. Could this person come back to the podium, please?
Y'all can both come.
Thank you for coming down.
It can be a group Q&A.
So.
I'm Cynthia.
Hi,
Hi,
Cynthia.
Cynthia.
Welcome.
So to understand what you're asking for, you're looking for 6 graves? 6?
It's for
There was
cremation.
the plot that had
Earth.
6 cremation.
Okay, and you're looking for a plot with the possibility of 6 people to be buried there?
I think that was
I
the
mean-
only option.
I think when we looked into it, that was the only option.
Right, that's.
But if we can get a 4, that would be fine as well.
I'm just asking because our policy is to have people who have lived in the town. And so I have no problem with one person and a person who has definite ties to Hamilton. But I'm wondering about awarding 6 cremation spots to,
So I think it's one spot, it's one plot that
It's
has
one
room
plot with
for either
6
four-
cremation.
For either,
Four
4 burials or 6 cremation.
I believe that's how it is.
Takes less space. So once you sell the plot, it's kind of off the market, and
That's just how
what
it
can get
works.
buried there
Yeah.
is,
That's the only
okay,
option we
right,
have.
right. But the issue is, it's one plot that will have room for 6 cremation.
It's a family
The
plot.
family plot.
It's a family plot. She's requesting a family plot.
Okay, so that's 4.
It's either
Or-
4 caskets or 6 cremations.
Okay, and so my question would be, we just had the discussion about people with direct ties to the town. So I'm wondering about that.
So this is the one I was saying that we did last year, that the primary person to be buried there was tied to Hamilton.
but did not live here, had never lived here.
But, no, the second
Oh, the
one.
second one, okay.
But we had the same conversation. It's like, well, that's one, but what about the other 3? And it was like her husband and then potentially her 2 children. And I think that's what Bill was saying, like, we don't really control that. The question is the purchase of the plot by someone who has ties to Hamilton Wenham.
That's our current policy.
That's our, process.
Right. And by extension, it could be, in reality, any other people who opt to use that plot.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it's
with,
likely somebody who lived here, and maybe their child, or, that wasn't here, but
But
has to be
we,
buried with
but
a parent.
given that we have limited space, it's different when you're asking for a plot for 1 person or 2 people. But when you're looking for a plot for 4 to 6 people who may or may not have ties to Hamilton, that changes the discussion for me.
But I mean, I think in this example, Cynthia grew up in Hamilton, moved to Peabody, and now wishes her parents are buried here, or family members, and she would
And-
like that option.
I understand that for Cynthia, but we don't have any control, we're saying,
Right.
over who else would come to rest there. And,
That's why I asked if we had a policy. I think, we sell a plot, and then,
well,
Be what it may.
that's my point. And we
Right.
do have limited space there. It's a very small cemetery. And so, I don't know. I don't know if in this instance I would feel comfortable with that. If I thought it was one person, Cynthia, then I would be, because she has direct ties and long-term ties to Hamilton. But I'm not sure I'm comfortable with just granting them a family plot, and we ultimately don't have any control over who would be using it. I'm just bringing that up.
Yeah, I think I'm not comfortable putting someone in the position of choosing whether to be buried with their parents and siblings or their own children and husband. And I think in that expansion, I think it makes sense to me that if Cynthia would like to be with her family and brother, and then by proxy, her children or spouse is there, I mean, that feels sort of familial. Because after this sale, no one else in Cynthia's family could come to us and ask for additional spots because they would not have the direct tie to the town. Or they could come ask, but we wouldn't be able to do it. So I think in my mind, not that it helps, it's like how many degrees, and I feel like the degree to which Cynthia would have additional family there feels appropriate.
But you're also presuming that specific people would be using it, right?
Well, as opposed to Cynthia allowing like her neighbor to be buried there?
Or a family member who never lived in Hamilton.
No, I'm saying I think she absolutely will allow family
Yeah.
members who weren't in Hamilton, but that's the difference between saying, Cynthia, you need to choose whether to be buried with this part of your family versus your immediate family, and I think I'm comfortable with that looseness, right?
Right, I mean, right now, we only offer two options, a single or a family.
Oh, you have
Which
it
is
up?
4 grade, that's it. That's the only option. We don't, and our policy doesn't differentiate between if you're a Hamilton quote-unquote resident or not, what you can buy. So it's changed the policy, but for right now, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but
But people could buy 2 single plots if it was for like a husband and a wife, I mean, which many people have
Right.
done. I just think we should
so would
be a
that, I
little.
mean, would that, so that's a good question. So would you, if you wanted, you said 2 would be an option. 2 is $1,400, 4 is $2,400. Do you want is that an option to do just the 2?
I'd like to be buried with my parents as well.
Yeah,
So it would be my husband and myself and her husband.
Yeah, and that's what you.
That's what I'm saying, like, that
Yeah, I
feels
think that's-
very appropriate to me.
Right.
I like that.
But then that goes against people from Hamilton. Do you see my point? It's,
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's any way to know that everybody that's there has lived in Hamilton. I think we've done
or
this
has
in the
close
past.
ties.
Yeah, we've done this in the past, so obviously other people have family plots, they've allowed their family members to be buried with them. So, I mean, there's no way for us to confirm that everybody that's buried in Hamilton cemeteries lived there or had close ties.
I've been involved in these issues before. This one is a little different. And I have some hesitation. I appreciate your discussion about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the question then just becomes a vote about whether people are comfortable or not.
Because I don't think it's unlike had she bought it when she was, not that people do that in high school, but
Right.
had she, the same thing would have happened. So you're allowing a resident to purchase up to 4. And now with cremations, you get 2 on top of the 4. I think that's how it works. But, so I don't think it's outside of, even if she still lived in Hamilton and bought it, right? I mean, am I thinking?
No, I mean, I'm trying to think like, I'm from Austin. I haven't lived in Austin for a long time, but all of my parents and my grandparents were buried in the same cemetery. And if I went there and said, I'd like to be buried with my family, I was born and raised here, I've lived in Massachusetts, but my family's here, and I said, can I have 6 spots? Because it's me and my husband and my child. Like, to me, that makes sense that
'Cause
we
had
all.
you done it while you were in Austin, you would
Yeah, I
have it
could have
today,
bought it
and then you could've
20 years ago,
Right.
but even if I didn't, I have deep ties to the town, and my children are just 1 degree separated from
Yeah.
that. Because then I feel like what you're actually creating is a bunch of very isolated burials of people who are not around their loved ones, which I think is harder for me.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of a family plot is to try to, keep families together. I think it's nice, but I understand what you're saying about, that's why I asked,
And we debate this every time, so this is not a new
Yeah.
debate.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate the
Right,
conversation.
So I appreciate, but I also agree that if you were once a resident of Hamilton, your family here, you could have bought a plot at some point. So just because you moved a couple years ago doesn't mean like now you've all of a sudden, I forgot to do that before I moved, so you've
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
And then we only really give 2 options, a single or a family plot. So I know, and like I said, in the past 7 years, we've always approved, in my recent history, anybody who's lived in town and wanted to buy a family plot, we've approved it. So I'm fine with it, but I understand. We can look at our policy And I'm fine with looking at policy, 'cause I think it would limit this conversation if we were more clear on our policy, because I think it's a little
Yeah.
gray, but I don't, but in this situation, I'm, based on what I've approved in the past, I'm fine with approving it.
I think what
I'm
you
good
say
with it.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine.
All right, so we will take it to a vote. All in favor of approving the sale of the cemetery plot, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The
Thank
ayes
you.
have it.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight.
We won't be offended if you leave immediately. It happens all the time.
Yes, that's true.
It doesn't get lighter and fluffier from here. All right, I believe I saw Tom.
Tom's here and Jonathan is on.
And Jonathan is online. So the next item on the agenda is to review the final draft of the amicus brief for the case of the Attorney General versus the town of Milton. Tom is here live and in person as we walk through this, and I'll turn it over to you if you want to do the Cliff's
Sure.
notes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for having us here tonight. Jonathan Murray, my colleague, is available on the Zoom telecast, and he's actually the one who put together the most recent draft. As you know, we appeared at the most recent Select Board meeting to discuss the draft. We received some feedback, very helpful feedback from a couple of board members subsequent to our drafting the first draft. We had previously heard from the chair of the planning board, and we had incorporated her comments and requests into the draft. And after receiving the additional comments from the select board members, we incorporated those into a new section of the draft, which has been circulated for review. So if you have any specific questions, I guess fire away. Jonathan's available to answer them. He's probably in a better position than I am.
Hi, Jonathan. Thank you so much for this edited draft. I like it. I just have one question. Some of the suggestions, and since I made some suggestions, you incorporated them pretty much entirely. Your language is gentler. And I'm wondering if that was so when I think about the cost of Salem Beverly water system to join, when I think about their problems, and I actually had sent another article talking about their problems with the MWRA, and given Hamilton's precarious situation with water, do you think it would be better to put the more specific stats in the brief, or do you feel that it's a good representation of the problems to have it more general, such as you have here? Uh-oh.
It's weird.
You're,
The volume, he's
I
talking,
can't, we can't hear you, Jonathan.
he's not muted.
No, 1 second. Hold on, Jonathan.
on.
We're gonna do a technology check.
Yeah, so
See if
you
the
see-
gerbils
you
are
let
still
me know
running on
when
their
you're
wheels
talking.
back there.
Turn the speakers up. Crank the volume.
Pump up the jam.
No, he's not muted.
Where does sound come
Hey,
out?
John, try it again.
Uh-oh.
Nope.
How soon can you get here?
Can you turn your volume up?
Try now.
Try it this week.
Nope, still not working, John.
Turn
Nothing.
your volume up, Joe, on your computer?
I think, I can try, but I think that's gonna turn
Not
the,
back, without back feeding the,
Is that
Try-
all
try it
right?
now?
There you go, that should work.
Jonathan? Are you speaking?
He is, no.
Nope.
No.
that's weird.
Hmm.
Can somebody else speak? Tim Olson, can you speak? And make sure we can
Nah,
hear
you
other
didn't
people?
reply earlier, maybe that was the same thing.
Tim Olson? or Darcy,
Or Wendy?
want to speak?
Can somebody, yes, can somebody say hello? Ask to unmute.
Nobody else? Virginia, Marcia,
Wendy, you're muted.
Wendy, Darcy, Tim?
We can't hear Wendy either.
This isn't good.
What's that X at the bottom next to the?
It's like it's Xed out volume.
Oh, that, you started here, we started here. What happened?
See a few icons over?
Yeah, turn your volume up for a second. Right now you're on mute.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi.
Volume doesn't come through here, it comes through the.
I know, but
It's
if you
gonna
had
be
to
PA.
listen to your computer.
It says it's muted.
That's his computer.
That's
though,
his
it says.
computer.
So can we hear out of your computer?
Yeah, I'm saying, can you hear out your computer?
Jonathan, can you try?
Jonathan, go ahead and talk.
Wonder if he can hear us now. Jonathan, can you hear us?
No,
We're not, we're muted now somehow.
it's the microphone up in participants, see, Joe, on the, we are muted on there now.
No, this is.
Oh,
us
wait,
here.
you're
This is
talking
us
about
here.
Hamilton
We're not.
Wenham.
We're not
You're-
muted.
Jonathan's
We're not
microphone
muted.
is bouncing.
Now we've
around.
broken it for real.
Broken internet. Oh, not, we're speaking now because it's yellow.
What is this doing? We can hear Tim.
Yeah, Tim you can hear, but
Okay.
Sounds like he's on the moon, but.
his computer audio, but
He
you
just
don't
went, he went out and he's gonna probably try and
but
come back in.
you don't
Yeah,
want
try to
computer
log
audio.
I don't
Uh-oh.
want a computer audio, but it's,
No, yeah, leave computer audio. But we heard Tim, someone else spoke.
Yeah.
So I think it's
Jonathan.
when he logged into Zoom.
Tim, can we still hear you? Try again?
No.
Connecting to audio.
Tim, are you there?
Jonathan just tried calling.
Jonathan, you there?
Logged out, logged back in.
Now we lost him too.
Okay, what if you, let's try this and make it feedback. What if you put your mic, speaker on?
Everybody prepare your ears.
Yeah, let's try this.
My speaker's on. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
My speaker's on. Jonathan, try it. Jonathan, can you try that? Can you speak? No, that's not it.
Bizarre.
Yeah, I know, it works all the time.
Could he call in?
Yeah, no, use your phone.
There's something, there's a disconnect somewhere here. What does that do? Jonathan, does that help?
You would be hearing this microphone.
Yeah.
I just thought if you put it on your speaker here, we'll just pick it up here, but you risk getting a lot of feedback.
It's not coming through somehow.
I'll get out and join it again and try to see if it's on my end. Just make sure your speaker's off and your microphone.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. We're gonna- Folks, stand by. We're going to lose the HWCAM feed for a minute and then get it back, we hope.
That's too bad.
Hey, Bill Wilson,
Yes.
do you know
They
who
can hear our
Beyonce
speech
calls when
and
she
then
needs
the
roof
speaker.
work done?
Who, Caroline?
All the shingle ladies.
Oh. Ba-dum boom.
I think the folks at home are glad that they can't hear.
Here all-
I
here
know.
all night.
Sad for them. Great for us.
Okay, let's see. HWCAM's coming back in. Let's see if this helps.
Joe, can you let me in?
Just let you in. Does that work now? Jonathan, you want to try to speak one more time?
He's not hearing us.
We heard Tim Olson, though.
Jonathan, do you hear us?
He can hear you.
So
What if he called in on his cell phone?
I can, if you want, I can try that.
Jonathan, try it again. I can hear him on my
I hear
computer.
something now.
it's on his computer.
Is,
I
oh,
can
is he on the phone?
I can
Probably
I can hear him
get
on my computer. Hey, Jonathan,
I can hear you now, yep.
Ah, hey,
Yay.
Yeah.
we got you.
but it's
All
on
right.
my computer.
We have a mic near you. I think it's be louder than a phone, I think.
I don't know where my speaker
All right.
is.
Okay, I think it's better.
So we'll just have to use yours, make sure, I think,
All right.
Okay.
Jonathan, we can hear you through Bill's computer, so if you remembered Rosie's question, want to take a crack at it?
It's like
I can hear
Jeopardy.
it, or I can take a crack at it again.
can you put the point the microphone down to the speaker, please?
I don't know where it is. Where's the
No, no,
speaker?
our microphones.
No, he doesn't know where the
I know
speaker on his
speaker's
computer
over
is.
Okay, that should work.
Try that. Okay, Jonathan.
Hello?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Go ahead.
All right, sorry about that. Microphone and speakers are showing good on my end, but I apologize if they're not on yours.
Nice job.
So the question was, I believe, should there be more specifics added in this new section E, rather than have general arguments, is that right?
Yes, I was wondering if the argument would be stronger about particular harms to Hamilton if we used some of the data that's directly applicable to the NWRA and the costs of the Salem-Beverly water system. Would that make our argument stronger or not necessarily? I mean, you have included the issues, yes, so I'm just wondering. Pondering.
Where did he go?
We lost, oh, there he
There
is.
he is.
Here, Jonathan?
Is it any better?
Yes.
We got you.
He can't hear us now.
Hello?
Yeah, can you
we
hear us?
Can
Can you
we can
hear
hear you,
us?
Jonathan.
Did you hear Rosemary's question?
So
He did, because he repeated it, right? He said.
Right.
He can't hear us.
This is,
The only thing is maybe make me the host, co-host, and then you log out and log back in?
Didn't happen when I ran the meeting.
it's, look, nobody here is going to debate that I'm the bad juju on this board.
I loved you, Joe.
Bill, you are now the host, so let's go.
Recording stopped.
I can hear you.
Bill's the host.
What do you want me to do? He dropped off, though.
He's logging out.
No, I think the Zoom's still alive, it's just me, a matter of me getting in there.
And if that doesn't work, maybe,
Your audio he can hear, I bet.
I got I'm on mute, though. which
Right,
is good.
because it will go.
Yeah.
We can put his phone.
But he dropped
onto
me.
the-
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
He's dialing back in. One more time. We'll give this one more try.
okay.
Don't go away, Jonathan.
So I have Jonathan on the phone here if this doesn't work, but he said he wasn't able to hear
Okay.
what was coming out on our end here.
Jonathan, can you hear us?
We're not connected yet.
Nope. All right. Can we turn off can you mute and let me use my
Here we
mic?
go, I'm back, hold on. Can people hear now?
Hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey,
Yeah, I can hear you now.
that's coming out of his computer,
Can you
though.
mute HWCam?
Yeah, mute HW.
Is it you or him now?
HWCam. You gotta mute HWCam.
Everybody? Okay, try it again, Jonathan.
He can only hear when it comes through your
You're-
computer, so
you
we have to
gotta
mute
mute HWCam.
Hamilton Wenham. and then use your computer.
Can you mute your?
They're just gonna have to hear us through his computer.
Oh my God.
Select board meeting. So I'm just saying, this is the
I
only time
forgot
we've
my
had this.
question.
Technology's been great. It's like we just did it for the first time.
All right, Jonathan,
Yes.
that seems to have worked.
Okay, sorry, very sorry about that. I couldn't hear you for a while, and whatever you just did fixed it, so thank you. Sorry about that.
That wasn't you, thanks.
So I believe the question posed, if I heard it correctly, was, should we include in the draft more specific, facts, pertaining to costs, or should we keep it more general? Was that the question?
And water. And
Yes, I
water.
was thinking on the lines of. Go ahead.
So,
Hi, Joseph.
in my opinion, I think the better approach is to keep it more general. As we talked about when I was there a few weeks ago, what the court is really looking for were answers to those three main legal questions. And while I think it's appropriate and this is the forum to do it, I think the court is going to give more attention to those legal arguments rather than kind of the factual cost arguments. So I think it's fine to keep them in there. I think it's a good decision, but I don't know if it's the most persuasive approach to kind of put in, very specific financial details or very specific cost analysis.
Okay. I was thinking in terms of a footnote, but I agree. The legal arguments are just super. So, it was just a question. I do think you have addressed them in a general nature, and they are very relevant to Hamilton. So, whatever you think.
And certainly, we still have some more time. My only concern is that if we're going to cite specific numbers, and I'm sure, someone has the references readily available, but if there's a particular number like that, 50 million that you mentioned in your question, I would just need a specific reference. So a link to a report or a page number or something like that. So if there's something like that you'd like me to include, I have no opposition. I think that's fine. We'll just need to specifically cite to that source for the court's benefit.
Right, and regarding the MWRA, I do have documents that discusses their own internal documents that talk about the infrastructure issues. We do have documents.
Joe's on mute, so he's not hearing you.
What?
Joe's on mute. No. Joe's on mute.
I don't know if anyone's.
Oh, Joe's on, okay, now we're shutting
Take him
it
off
off.
mute. Take Joe off mute, so he can hear you.
Okay. So, Jonathan, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Now
he
we
can hear
can't
you.
hear. Okay, so my turn to speak, you're muted, it seems like, and then when it's your turn, I'll go and mute. Just my comment is, so the MWRA, we have the lack of infrastructure available, that the MWRA wants to expand all over northern and southern New Massachusetts. And then the issue of the cost of that infrastructure. And we also have the fact that the legislature just vetoed the $1 billion that they had asked for that. And I think from a logistics standpoint, it might make sense to list that because, well, gee, that Hamilton is complaining, but we have factual data that supports what our deficits are and how we cannot comply with this. So, and anyhow, those are the things. You said we still have more time to think about it. Obviously, I defer to you. I think the brief really is strong. I was just wondering about the other issues, the specifics. Okay, so I have to mute so that he can. This is crazy.
Hi. Thank you. Like I said, I'm more than happy to put those specifics in, and if you want to email them to me or to the town manager, and I just need a citation or a a link, and I'll drop a footnote in there with that. That's no problem whatsoever.
Okay, if everybody agrees that that's a good idea. I think the more specific, well, I'm on mute again. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, do I come over there?
Yeah, you gotta go over there.
So,
He's not, still on mute.
hey, Jonathan, Bill, can you hear me?
Yeah, you can hear
So
you.
my question is more around page 10, footnote 2. And I think this is really impactful, where it talks about, we're really talking about a mile radius versus a half a mile because of the Wenham and Hamilton sharing the train station, and I know other communities do the same. But first part is like, I don't know if that should be a footnote or in the body of the document, just to say, because we share a train, we're talking about not a half a mile and 750, but also it's a mile with, and this is the second part, I don't think it's 750, this combined number, isn't it more like 1,000 between the two communities? And it's 750 in this.
But only 20% has to be within
But
the
that
half,
isn't,
the
that wouldn't be
mile.
the 20%. I think that's meant to reflect the whole number, right? I think we gotta, talk maybe about putting that in the body, but if not, just make sure we have the right number there, because it's more than that. It's 20% of 1,000 or so then.
Yeah,
You're right about the 20%, but we can't control what Wenham does. They may put everything in there, right? So, but I think that's, we talked about it in goal setting, right? I mean, that's the big concern. If everything dropped in this area, which it could, doesn't have to be. Let's get the number right. That's 750. I think it's more like 1,000. What is it? 750 plus 350 or?
731 plus, what are they, 350?
350, 341, something
Something
like
like that.
So if we can just get that number in there, and then I just want to make sure we hammer that point, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, mute this. Hold on, Jonathan, we're gonna mute us. Then you're on.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back and double check that number, and I'll look at what the percentage is, and if that needs to be adjusted, I'll change that. As to your point about hammering that home, I can also add, we've put in those subsections in the new section E with more local concerns.
Yep.
And I have no problem adding a new subsection, reiterating that point that's in that footnote. So that's not a problem.
Okay, perfect.
Can you are you unmuted? Can you hear me?
But it's the pages.
This, again, I defer to you in terms of like the specificity, and maybe this is like a larger 3A question, but I'm curious about like our current households versus the number of required units versus, it's like a 35% increase in overall population and like a 20-something increase in residents that's assuming 1 or 2 per unit, not even 3, 4, or 5. Do we have any sense of like how the multiplier was applied to even get there? Because it seems like when you look at any reasonable and sustainable growth for any township, like we cannot increase by 30+% within any reasonable period of time. Like, I don't know that any town could say that they could. And is that equal application to us versus other towns? Do you know?
That's a good question.
Hold on, Jonathan, we're gonna mute ourselves.
So that's a very good question. I think your question kind of gets at the heart of some inconsistencies in the law. I mean, on one hand, the guidelines in the law, provide that not a single unit of housing has to be built. But to your point, at the same time, the guidelines also apply these multipliers in a broad kind of fashion to different communities, in eastern Massachusetts. I'm sure, to give HLC the benefit of the doubt, I'm sure there was some thought. I don't know if that thought then gets translated into the multiplier in the guidelines, though. So I think that's why it's challenging for, really any town to adopt and, fully build out, if that was their goal, what the guidelines suggest. But I really can't speak to kind of how HLC came up with that multiplier. That was internally devised.
Okay. What are our next steps here? Rosie, do you have additional things that you're mulling over?
Joe should unmute so they can hear us on.
Oh,
I think just the issue, Jonathan, I will find those links for you. I believe I did send you one from the Lowell Sun, which was quoted from the MWRA's own site. So if you need, if you want something more specific, I can contact the author of that and just get his site. That's fine. I'm happy to do that. So just another comment. Do you know, one of the, and this is probably, this may not be appropriate for the brief, but the comment is, the argument is you only have to zone, you don't have to build. Well, here's an example. Lexington already has, they have to build, I don't know, like 1,200, something like that, give or take a few hundred. But they've already got in hand 5 applications for 350 to 400 units, just like that. So I think, and I don't know if that impacts the brief at all. I don't know if that example would be part of the brief, but you think about the impact that something like that would have upon a little tiny town like Hamilton. So
Jonathan, we're just talking next steps. It sounds like Rosie to provide that data. I think the feedback of like, are there places we want to like sharpen or clarify if we want to go back through that again, if there's any specific examples? No.
I think otherwise, I think talked about the traffic on 1A, inability to widen it. I think pretty much encompassed everything.
Yeah, it's very comprehensive. I just want to make sure that we have gotten some we've gotten some feedback in email, feeling as though we're not moving forward quickly enough. I feel like we're moving forward at a very reasonable pace. But I know folks are eager to know, like, what is the last draft? And it sounds like we're 92% of the way there. Are we going to wait for the next meeting for one final read-through, or are we going to get a copy and take a look on the interweb? How do y'all want to approve the next? I mean, I think we said we were going to have it by September.
Right, yeah, so the only thing I was gonna say is that the oral arguments, I don't know, Jonathan might know if there's a specific date set, but originally, when we checked last a couple of weeks ago, it was still just on the court's website as an October date.
Okay.
And we'll need to file our brief within 30 days of the date of the hearing. So we don't know exactly what that is. So, you know, technically, if they scheduled it for October 1st, then we would have to file it by September 1st. So I'm not really sure. I think when I talked to Joe, the board wasn't meeting again until sometime in September. So I think we probably want to be prepared to, unless the board wants to schedule a special meeting before the end of the month, I think we want to be prepared to proceed, you know, with, if you have certainly any changes, we can certainly try to
just the
incorporate them
addition-
into the brief for
Sorry.
the items that Rosie had mentioned. We can certainly do that, and we can take a look at the footnote issue that Bill raised and confirm the number of units. But, you know, other than that, unless, we're happy to do whatever you want. But if in order to meet the deadline, I just want to make sure that we're not trying to schedule a meeting for sometime, the second week of September, and we're in a pickle because we're going to be beyond the deadline.
I think if we're comfortable,
Just adding the
Yeah,
footnote
yeah.
and correcting
As edited,
the other
approve it.
footnote.
okay. So I would just say do you feel comfortable with what you have for end of day tomorrow to send that over? Is it that readily available?
I would have to contact the author of the Lowell Sun
okay.
article just to get his, I mean, we could use that article because
Yep.
it quotes the MWRA, but and in terms of the Salem Beverly cost, we'd have to look at the Dewberry reports. So,
Do we have those costs, Joe, already? Do we?
yeah, those are,
The swimming report had some of those.
swimming, yes, yes.
Had those estimates, so.
So can we just use those numbers from the swimming report, if that's what it's called?
So I would say anything we want to provide, we should provide by the end of this week.
Yes.
If it's not provided, we need to go ahead, y'all do what you did, and then I think we should agree, beginning of next week, just check your email for the final draft, and we'll do a quick, are we good? That way we commit to getting it in by basically September 1st.
Right, yes, I think we'll want to file it really by, ideally, we want to be prepared to file it by the end of next week, because
Okay.
next Friday is the 30th, so.
Yep. Okay, I think,
I have some time this week, I can get that done.
okay, so Jonathan, you'll be receiving some follow-up from Rosie, and then if we can get a final copy by early next week, we'll commit by Wednesday, Thursday to just give it the final okay, so that y'all can file it by Friday.
Right.
Is that-
Yeah, and we may, at that point, we'll obviously be continuing to check the court website to see when the actual hearing is going to be held before the SJC. And if they schedule the date, for example, for, October 21st, that obviously buys us a little bit more time as well. We just don't have when we last checked about a week or two ago, the date had still not been determined.
Okay. Jonathan, we will mute ourselves quickly, and you may present your final arguments before we move on.
Thank you. Yeah, whatever timeline works for you all, I will get it done on my end. I will just note that the town of Milton filed their brief. It was docketed today, so I haven't actually seen it yet, but I will call the clerk's office tomorrow and get a copy. And if there's anything I think I should raise with you all, I'll let you know. Otherwise, yeah, if we can get any final comments, I will incorporate that into a draft, and then we'll get it to the printer to be filed.
Okay. Anybody here to add anything to this? I know that the audio is a real treat, but we good?
I don't think we come together in that time frame again.
We don't. That's why we want to make sure that we do it on the,
So if the council gives us a final,
will you unmute so Jonathan can?
We can hear us. Jonathan, can you hear us?
so if
We
council,
can hear us.
if council submits a final copy to us by next week, I'll circulate it to the board. Board members can communicate to myself or Caroline, just yay or nay, and we'll let Tom know.
Cool.
That sounds good.
Grateful. Thank you very much. Jonathan, thanks for joining us and trying all sorts of audio. We'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Moving forward, is the HWCam audio working for the online people?
I don't think so.
I think we're gonna have to
You
go
leave
through
your
this with
mic on?
Wendy. If we want to hear from Wendy, we're gonna have to do the same thing.
What?
Is the audio working? So let's
You can ask
let's
people,
try.
it's Tim.
Wendy or Tim, can you hear us? Can you speak now?
And unmute Joe.
Yeah, I don't,
Wendy or Tim, can you hear us, and would you speak now?
Good, so,
We'll have to do the same thing. They can only hear through Joe's computer,
right, but we could hear them.
through your computer.
Oh, my computer's on mute, so we just all of a sudden heard them.
Wendy, will you talk again, please?
yeah, you wanna try it? Can I try something?
Sure, please.
Like this? Yeah. He thinks he has an idea.
If you get this working, Bill should look over
You'll
shoulder.
get a high five.
I'm more of a Mac person.
Me too.
Should be open mixing sound settings. This is a problem in another meeting we had today. What's the name of the speakers? Crestron, see? It is the Crestron.
Volume is at 0.
Audio allow, what does that say? Where's it? Use it, see, don't allow or allow, right, so. Try now?
Can everybody hear us? Tim, Wendy, can you speak?
No, there's nothing
We're gonna
showing
have
up.
to do the,
Now it's on.
Okay, there's a delay.
I think we have to
Tim's
hit
speaking.
allow.
Tim
Can
is
y'all
green.
hear us?
No, I think it's, no,
not trying to take over
yeah,
your
you know,
laptop, but.
I'm not working it very well, so may as well.
Tim is green.
Yeah, I think he's gonna reboot.
Who?
You.
I have to reboot?
Maybe if we just tried,
Unplug, you're saying?
yeah.
Unplug it to Yamada.
You blowing it like a Nintendo? Town
No,
hall?
no, because it wasn't turned on when, the computer was turned on. Okay, so, there it is right there now.
Ladies and gentlemen, online, can you
The
hear?
default speakers changed. Yes. Display audio being used now. Connection?
Wendy, can you hear us if we talk now? Okay, Wendy is unmuted and trying to talk.
Oh, we're muted right now.
But that's his,
Was
that's
that you?
his,
No, but it needs to be unmuted because it's going, believe it's going.
no, because now we're in as him. We want Hamilton Wenham to pick up the audio.
Wendy, can you say something?
Yes, we can hear you.
That's good. Tim?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
That's through my computer again.
Well, it's working.
Let's see,
Alright,
it's
keep
like
going.
backing.
We'll get
Only when we have trying to speak at the same time.
Oy.
I know, we're so close. How bad is the feedback when I try to talk?
Okay.
She laughs. Okay. We're gonna do our best, and if Bill comes in or somebody comes in with a better option, we will switch to it, but we only have one item left.
Talk close to Joe's mic,
So,
not his computer mic.
Wendy, I'm talking right now. I assume you can hear me?
Yes. You can hear, yeah, I have my mic, I have my speaker turned down, but go ahead.
Can you say, you
Oh,
can hear?
You just muted, there
You can hear us, right, Wendy?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So, final item on the agenda is to review the draft warrant for September 23rd, 2024, which is the special town meeting to move forward with the town hall, the needed town hall funding options.
Tom's here.
Tom is here again,
Drafted the warrant.
Yes.
who drafted the warrant, does an excellent job every
Thank
time. Would you like to
Can you
talk?
hear us, Tom?
I can.
Tom, are you available to hear us?
I am.
Would you like to tell us about your work?
Sure.
You might need to be near Joe's.
Oh,
mic.
does he need to come over here?
Yes.
Okay.
Come sit right here, Tom.
Sure.
You do that. Then just head on to your car. Just see how it goes.
All right, thank you. So I've been working with the town manager and Wendy in preparing the warrant for the special town meeting. So we included one general warrant article just to see if the town had any reports, which can be passed over if there aren't any. And then two financial articles on the warrant. One is to appropriate additional funds that are available through the CPC to fund the town hall project, and then a second article to fund a portion, the non-CPC reimbursable portions of the project through just a general appropriation of town funds. So there's some blanks, I think, that kind of need to be filled in. I think when I was last here, there was still some discussion that was going to take place among the finance director, finance committee, select board perhaps, and others in terms of exactly how the funding was going to work for the project. But I think the articles themselves are in pretty good shape. It's just a matter of nailing down specifically what the dollar amounts will be and what the funding sources will be for those specific amounts.
Okay. The first is the funds. One is free cash and one is CPC, right? The first one is the CPC appropriation and the second is the free cash of half a million.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, and Wendy, do we have an exact amount, or are we suggesting an exact amount? I mean, we're gonna have to put something in there, or we will be burned at the stake.
So CPC approved $1.5 million.
Okay.
And then we were discussing 500,000 from free cash as a second warrant article.
Okay. Yeah, I do think we should put the actual 1.5 number in there, just for transparency.
Yeah, when we asked students to draft it, we didn't have.
So they did vote on the 8th, 1.5. There was some discussion of all the projects that they have, and this is really gonna strain them, you know, for the next 10-plus years. Just, it's a lot of money. I know we've kind of taken off the table, just to simplify, I think, only 2 sources, because before we talked about changing the reserve percents, before we talked about opera. So we're pulling that off, right, and just focusing on the 2.
Yep.
I just want everyone to know that there was a long discussion, although they proved it, that it's really gonna constrain them from future project grants going forward.
And this maintains the ARPA for some sidewalks?
Sidewalks, Penn Park, or other things. You can do what you want with the ARPA money.
Right.
You have till December to take that vote forward.
Okay. Isn't it exciting for you, Bill? We're still gonna get some sidewalks.
Love my sidewalks.
I know you do.
On Goodhue.
And they were in dire jeopardy at one point when you weren't here. And thanks to
Thank
Wendy.
you for supporting my sidewalks in my absence.
This is Wendy and Jay came forward and said, in honor of Bill. All right, any questions or comments? Or what are we voting for? Open or close?
Where are we at again?
It's already closed.
You could have a vote the warrant's already closed. You can have a vote to actually add the specific numbers to the 2 articles, and then your recommendation. The select board votes to recommend or not
Okay.
recommend, and have that, and then we'll put that in. So FinCom is gonna meet on the 28th, and they'll take their votes, and then that will get added to the warrant after their votes, and then this will be ready to go and be posted and available to the public on September 9th.
All right, so I will entertain a motion for the addition of the specific amount of 1.5 to be allocated from the CPC for the town hall project as outlined in the warrant article 2024-9-2-1.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, would you like to discuss? Yes.
You might have to come up to Joe's computer to
Yeah, you may
talk.
have to sort of hover right here.
Oh.
We're not even in the Zoom anymore,
No,
but
that's okay. I just had a question within the warrant, because as I understand it, we voted in April for some amount of money, and then we went to bid, and then it came in
Can't
high.
hear him.
And now we're trying,
You need to be at the microphone.
does it work?
Yes, you can hear it.
but we're not in the
We're not in
Zoom
the
anymore.
We're not on the Zoom.
Hamilton
Except you
Wyndham
can.
isn't, y'all dropped out.
Y'all dropped out.
Yeah, I have this on TV, so.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay,
Talk into the
so
microphone.
I'll just start over again. The whole timeline of approving something in April, and then going to bid, and then having it be too high, so this is supplemental to what we already approved in April.
Yeah.
Or November,
Yeah.
sorry, timeline, sorry. So is that total cost of the project gonna be, like, is that history gonna be in the discussion? Because it's not in the warrant, right? So would it make sense to, because people probably don't remember that we've already approved the other one, they might think it's just, just to understand fully, I'm not saying it would necessarily change the vote, but I feel like the process of it should be at least in the discussion, so that people understand.
Be a presentation at
Yeah.
town meeting about
Jay
why we're here, what
Butler
we're
is-
asking for, and why we're asking
Yeah.
for it. And
Yeah.
the CPC will speak to what their
Right.
recommendation is. FinCom will have an opportunity to speak to whatever their recommendation is. Tim, and other members of the staff will outline how we got to where we got.
All right.
Oh, so that's not something that's in the warrant discussion portion of it, like where
It'll be
there's
discussed
the
in town meeting.
description?
It'll be
So it's not in the
discussed.
description, it's just part
No,
of a
the
verbal
description is
discussion?
typically just the summary of what the ask
For
is
this particular,
for this warrant item.
Right.
And then whoever presents the, there's often presentations to start, and then whoever presents the article for approval will typically give an overview of just that thing.
Okay, because in the dates that are in the warrant, like it references dates of other meetings, but the dollar amounts aren't really connected to those things, so I didn't know whether that would like fold into it, the dollar amounts that would, so November of '23, 5 mil, the other one, just so that there's sort of that transparency within the article of the warrant, of the cumulative cost of what it is, whether that would make
I'm
sense to
shaking
be
your
in there.
Yeah, we don't typically put,
We don't, it would just reference the dates of voting prior.
Part of the reason those meetings are being referenced is because we need to extend deadlines that were associated with those votes and by the previous CPC votes. So we have to reference those votes to extend the deadline that was set in those votes. That's the reason they're referenced that way.
And Jake Butler usually gives a very good synopsis, so I think you can expect to hear that from him at the town meeting as well, that will have dates and amounts. Jay Butler, he's the chair of the CPC.
So he'll do the CPC piece, but I mean, maybe you're gonna speak to it now. This is what she's asking
Yeah.
for, basically.
Yeah, so what FinCom will do, in the book of recommendations, will recap the history. Okay? In November, it was a $6.5 million project. That's going to 8.5. So that's a $2 million bulge. And just as a matter of full disclosure and reminders, when CPC votes to bond the project, there's interest cost. Okay? So that's not generally discussed in the warrant, and it's not generally discussed in the conversation by the CPC, or even when the town bonds anything. We generally aren't. It sort of just goes without saying, the town will pay the interest cost. Anyway, in this case, the full project, now at $8.5 million, which is really the construction bulge. There was actually 1.1 million that was voted in 2018 and onward for design. All right, so that's part of the project. The interest cost on the bonds will be $2.5 million. So this project all in will be $12.1 million. So it's important that you folks aren't getting surprised by the cumulative history of the project. So we'll put that in the book of recommendations. It's not news to anybody, it's just what it is, all right? But really, the essence is this $2 million difference in the bids, which the FinCom looked at, and we saw in the school building projects, we saw these incredible increases in costs over the last 3 years. So construction costs are going up dramatically. We also saw the Globe Spotlight article explaining the tremendous cost increases for construction in the state of Massachusetts. So without a doubt, in the last 3 years, construction costs have gone through the roof, and that hit us right between the eyes. The question that we could be asked is, well, we used, back in November, pretty old set of estimates, and it caught us to the tune of 42% difference. So it's just the fact. So those are some of that's sort of the full history. So it's just important that the select board understand the full history in case we get asked or get challenged. It's just fair transparency. The other part of the project that we haven't talked about, that's not in front of the town, is the carbonization project. And I spoke about this last November, really imaginative, thoughtful way to try to generate some value for the taxpayers. It's a $1.8 million project, 100% funded by grants and cost recovery. So I don't know that you folks have talked about that, but I don't think we've explained that to the town. Based on what I can tell, it's a really great idea. And I think I think the town should get a lot of credit for looking for ingenious ways in order to help fix this building. So that's another 1.8 million, but it's self-funded, which is a great story. So I think that should be part of the conversation. So we'll write up all that history and put it in the book of recommendations. It's just fair and transparent.
Where's the 1.8, is that showing up in the 12 million?
No, it's completely separate.
But it's a project that's happening to the building.
Correct. So I wanted to bring that up because I don't think it's been discussed at the town meeting. It's been referenced. I think, Joe, you talked a fair amount of it, but I don't know that we put a dollar amount on it.
Well, so, we did discuss it and the funding mechanism during the special town meeting last November.
Yep.
But we didn't have final dollar amounts because we weren't sure that geothermal was gonna work or if we were gonna be going with solar. So the final dollar amount hadn't been worked out yet, so we weren't able to say it's gonna be this much and
Right.
this is how we're gonna pay for it. But we've obviously done a lot of work in the last months. And
Yeah.
so we're now-
And we had ESG come into the FinCom the other night, and they the engineer walked us through it. It's pretty impressive. I mean, there are definitely some risks. I mean, if you drill these geothermal columns 900 feet into the ground and then all the mechanics of it, I couldn't even start to explain it. But it feels to me as though we should give the town the ability to say, oh, there's another big project going on. The funding is there. The town's going to have to sign a 20-year lease. There's $450,000 worth of interest that goes with that lease, but that's self-funded. So it's an interesting project, completely self-contained. If the select board needs a briefing on it, you can certainly read what I distributed to you folks. I think a pretty thoughtful effort on the part of Tim and Joe and the group. So anyway, we're gonna wait for you folks to vote. Once the warrant's finalized, we'll write up our recommendation and get it to Joe on the 6th for the book of recommendations. So anyway, so that's just a sort of a full view that we sort of gathered over the last few weeks. There were some numbers moving around. I had to catch up on some of the history, so anyway.
I just wanted to ask about the interest rate.
Well, we've got it at 4%.
Okay.
You won't know really until you go out to bond.
We don't know.
But
You know,
that-
the projections we did on the school building project, I had it at 5%. So, it's probably gonna be in that range somewhere.
Okay.
But the town hall, it's $2.5 million worth of interest on these bonds. So that's taxpayer dollars.
Over 10 years.
20.
20.
Town hall would be 20.
20, okay.
Town hall's 20.
So it's, again, when you issue a bond, you gotta pay the interest, but it's real dollars.
That's right. No, it's real dollars, but it's over
Yeah.
20 years.
And the last point, CPC voted on last week. I was at the meeting, and, it's gonna chew up, as Bill said, a lot of the capacity, for the CPC. So but it seems to be, this type of project seems to be square on
Right,
where they should be spending money.
right.
So that seems to be fair. So, anyway,
So
that's all I had.
this is great. Thank you for putting this
Yeah,
together.
it's,
I did have a chance to, and you talk about risk, but, and when I hear grants, I mean, grants typically aren't guaranteed, right? I mean, do we know that these will be appropriated and would get them, or?
we
is
should
there a
know
process?
this week.
Okay.
We should know this week. I think it was by the 21st, Joe, I think
Yeah,
is what I
and
remember.
I'm actually, yeah, we should know this week. We should know by the 21st.
Okay.
And be able to say that.
So if you don't, then we don't do the project, or do you
No,
come back?
we
next
don't do
month?
that
Yeah.
part
No,
of it.
it just changes the formula on what gets, on the repayment on the other side of it. But we can have Bill Garbati and Christian come in and talk to you about it and have a preparation for it. But we'll know before we get to town.
Yeah,
meeting. So-
my understanding is that the calculation for the lease is pretty tight. So I don't know, I don't think there's really any more wiggle room in the savings. Because basically, you're paying for it out of savings, you know? And I don't know that we can squeeze any more money out of the project because it's pretty tight. So it's, I mean, we went through the numbers, checked their calculations, very professionally done. But it's a 20-year lease commitment that the town would sign off on, and then you take on that risk.
ESG, the company that we're contracting with to do the decarbonization project. So HVAC
Someone else
to do,
something, but it's our land that the town hall is on?
yeah.
Yeah.
So are we at risk of that town land?
It's all, no, it's, we're gonna own it. We're gonna own it right away. We'll just be paying it in a lease
Yeah.
situation, so.
What is, will you be sharing what it is that we're doing? I don't know.
Well, see, that's my point.
Yeah.
We
Right.
haven't
We haven't
explained to
decided.
anybody,
It sounds risky. to me.
What-
Just as an
what-
outsider, like, wait, what?
you know,
I thought we're just.
we haven't shared with anybody what that project is. So, you know, I think the town needs to
Do we vote?
explain it.
Do we vote on it? If you're putting town property into a lease.
No.
No, we're not putting town property into a lease. the contract that would facilitate this, whereby construction is done, you're building a facility, you're electrifying the building, and you're getting grant money to pay for it, which is, I think, the very ingenious, part of the project. And you pay for the lease out of savings, the difference between the new energy and the old energy. You're saving the town a lot of money. So it's my point is, again, we put this on the agenda for the FinCom. We brought them in. We kind of went through it. We digested it. I've documented it. No one from the town or the public, joined us. But it's, I think, really a worthwhile project. But we're not encumbering the land. All right, so anyway, that was the outcome of our,
So I guess one of the questions is, should we have a presentation on that part of the project? Because at the town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, the select board before we even engaged with ESG, we had them in to see you as a board
I remember
a
that.
year ago, July.
Yeah.
And that's what started that aspect of the project being separated out. As I said, we've done a lot of work in the last 11 to 13 months, so absolutely can bring Bill and Christian in to talk to you at the next meeting and update you on exactly what, and we'll have a presentation about that part of the project, a more built-out presentation than we had at last year's STM, but that's a vote that the select board makes under the energy laws in the state, so.
Okay. Yeah, it would be a good idea, I think, to bring them in to one of our meetings.
Yep.
My last question, sorry. Is the project bid out so that this will be the last time?
Yes.
So there's nothing that's gonna escalate again, right?
We've locked the bid.
Yeah.
Until,
Carrying a contingency, but we
Yeah,
have a bid.
No, there's a,
No,
the number we're asking for, the $2 million, includes $6.75 million, I mean, $675,000, excuse me, of contingency, so that if something comes in over, or we run into something with the building that we didn't anticipate, there's money there to cover that cost.
But we have a bid for the project, based on the drawings.
A current bid.
Current bid on the current drawings, finalized drawings, so. So,
all right, so we have a motion to include the amount. We have a second on that motion. We just need to take a vote about including the 1.5 million.
I wasn't sitting in my test taking notes, so who did the motion and who seconded?
It was a
It was
motion?
Bill, and then Rosemary seconded, right?
Yeah, or vice versa.
And that was just on the CPC article first, right?
Just on the inclusion of the amount of money into the first article. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. The next is a motion to recommend favorable action on the first article. So I will entertain a motion to take favorable action on Article 2024/9
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion here?
Is there anything else the FinCom will vote on regarding that we'd want to know, or are you saying the FinCom already agrees with the split in the funding and the associated interest with it, because you made a point of bringing that up, which is a good one. And we left some other pockets of monies that wouldn't have come with interest, there. We could have saved a little interest, I think, but to keep it simple, I think we went with this way. But is there anything that you're voting on the 28th we would want to know that would influence?
no, I think as stated, it's a $2 million increase from the last budget.
Right.
We showed 6.5 at town meeting.
Yep.
And now you're saying that's 8.5. That's what we're going with.
Right.
So that will be then presented at town meeting.
Right.
What we'll do is, in the book recommendations, is to provide a broader perspective of here's the total view of the project.
Right, but it's 6.5 was what we had raised at the time, not what we thought the project would cost.
Well, I mean, we were
We based it on-
optimistic. We were
Optimistic,
basing it on
Right.
we were basing it on an updated estimate that had been done for us by PM&C last, a year ago, July. So it was old data, but it wasn't 2 years old. It was,
Right.
it was, at the time, it was 5 months old, but by the time we went out to bid, it was almost a year old, so.
FinCom recommends that we go back to 2016 and approve the project originally for the $5.5 million comprehensive cost for the entire thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ironic, right? So we had gone to the voters twice and asked for a debt exclusion to be able to raise the money that way, because we didn't have as much free cash and we didn't have the decarbonization part of the project at that time. And so it was a less expensive project, costs associated with the inflation and the other escalating factors hadn't hit us. We could have had this project done by now for half the money.
And twice the improvements.
But now we're here. We still need to improve the building.
Let's get it done.
Money is so expensive.
That's what it is.
All right, so we have a motion for favorable action. We have a second. Any further discussion? All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Oh, no, okay.
4 has it out of 4. We should probably note that Tom is not here.
And then the second article for
Yep.
500.
So the second article is there, we're saying expected request. Should that be amended to say?
The request is.
The request is, okay. So
I could also change the article to say, like, as it's written, it's more generally worded
Right.
to allow, it has multiple options for funding sources. It has raise and appropriate through taxation, transfer from available funds or borrow. But if you want, we can be more specific and just say to see if the town will vote to transfer $500,000 from free cash right in the article itself.
Yeah.
And we can eliminate that extra line.
I would also say, since the prior article says community preservation town hall project, this one should say free cash town hall project.
I can add that.
On this side, yeah.
It says from free cash now.
Well, I just mean right here in the actual name
oh,
under
in
here.
the-
Like,
gotcha.
so at a glance, you realize that it's two funding sources.
Gotcha.
Okay, to see if the town, so you're gonna update that. The sum of money will be $500,000 for the purposes of funding town hall, including incidental related costs, okay? So the first motion will be, I will, accept a motion to update the language in Article 2024/9(2) to include specificity of amount,
And source.
and source.
Right, so I'll change, so the Article 2-2 will read, to see if the town will vote to transfer $500,000 from free cash for
Yep.
the purpose of funding the town hall renovation project, including all incidental and related costs, or take any action thereon or related thereto.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
So moved, okay. And a second?
Second.
Ooh,
Bill got
I
me.
think it was Olson.
Wilson.
The
Olson.
Bills.
Son.
It's an Olympic final. Okay, any additional questions or comments about editing of that language?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it. Next would be the vote for favorable action. I assume, John, that with one comes the other. Do you foresee the FinCom having any subsequent issue with the free cash?
No, I mean, the beauty of the free cash proposal is it keeps you just above the reserve 5%.
5%.
And that's why
Yeah.
we felt comfortable with,
Yeah.
we didn't challenge the policy.
And then you're gonna,
So we then have to vote on the 28th.
and then you're gonna gift 500,000 to the town
Yeah.
in the holidays? Okay, great, cool.
Personal bank account.
Personal bank account, a gift. All right, so I will entertain a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 2024/9(2)(2).
So moved.
Second.
That's also Olson. Would you stop training, Wilson?
I just wanted
Not even
them to feel included.
I agree, that's good. Keeps Bill coming back. All right, any additional conversation? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is it for the warrant. The last agenda item we have, is there any new business that needs to be brought up for later inclusion or discussion?
I just wanted to bring up the issue about the HERO Act that was signed by the governor, which among its many assets, it will serve to double the tax abatement for veterans who are qualified. And so there was a veteran who contacted me and was very interested in that, and I had asked if it could be on our special town meeting, and Joe had said it's not eligible until 2026. So I would like that to be on our radar to discuss more of and have on our spring ATM.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you giving me credit for it, but it was really the folks in the assessing department had contacted DLS, Department of Local Services, and DLS had noted that because the governor did not sign the HERO Act until after the deadline to have it included as part of the FY25 package, it wouldn't take effect until FY26. DLS has also said that they're going to provide guidance and sample warrant language between now and the spring. So it doesn't really make sense for us to go ahead and rush to try to pass something when the language might not match and won't take effect until FY26 anyway. So on the advice of council and with DLS's advice, we just have to put it off. But we'll have a good article that's approved by the state and ready to be enacted at the Springtown meeting.
Good, I want our veterans to know we're in their corner.
Right, and
I'm a
we
veteran,
will-
so I agree with
We
you.
will be on the lookout for that guidance from DLS. That's a question, obviously, I think you were the first folks to raise it, actually, but I'm sure it will be coming up from
Yeah,
a number of communities.
yeah.
That's how on the ball we are, John.
I know.
Not similar to veterans or tax abatements, but on Mora, assigning things. The in-law apartment thing, anybody?
ADU units, yes.
ADU
We just,
units,
yeah.
so we just
Right.
issued some guidance on it. It is not my area of expertise at all, but I know we did just issue an e-update with some guidance for municipalities on it. I don't believe it goes into effect right away, but
But it's coming.
it is coming.
Okay, I'd be curious just to have some conversation with the planning, like, I don't even understand. It's by right now for anyone, but is it beholden to the existing property bounds and things? I'm not putting you on the spot, and I just would like to understand that more, because, I mean, even people who were, I've heard someone said, well, I was gonna do a shed, but now I'll do an in-law.
I thought we already voted on something similar to
I
that.
don't believe the town,
Just certain areas.
certain
right?
areas,
Yeah.
what you did was you voted to legitimize units that have been added illegally in the past and bring them onto the tax rolls for purposes of assessing, et cetera, and to allow people to advertise that those are apartments for rent. But there were several people who had built illegal apartments in the town in different places and were using them. So the law, the bylaw that the town passed, or the article that the town approved at town meeting a couple years ago, was merely to legitimize those previously illegitimate units. This is different, and it would have to be within the bounds of the owned property. But we'd need to find out things about, how setbacks and things are impacted. And so that's,
Right,
we'll look for the guidance and
it will
share it with
definitely
the
require a
planning board.
review of the zoning bylaw as well to see if there are any provisions that'll need to be amended.
Could be septic issues. I'm sure there's a process that have to go through.
Yeah, so, I mean, so septic is an issue. Well, again, zoning considers one part of the process of building. In a town that doesn't have wastewater treatment or wastewater at all, that is a very important part of how these things get done. So while the state has changed the zoning to allow accessory dwelling units on anybody's property in the state, they can't override the fact of, can that land support the septic that would be required with that? So
Right.
what's the size of the ADU that gets added? How many bedrooms is it, for instance? Because some parcels are gonna be very, very tight, and it's gonna be very difficult. Those laws haven't been updated, so.
Okay.
Any,
We talked about decarbonization. I think you already took pen
Yeah.
and paper, right? I think that's a good topic coming up as well for new business.
okay, Virginia, I see that you have your hand raised. Can you, you're
Unmute.
welcome to speak. Did you have a new business item?
She took her hand down.
Oh, okay. Please don't leave before you've signed the Dealey Whopper here. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry,
Hello?
what's up, Virginia?
Just one, I happen to turn on closed caption because of all the different voices and the problems with the computer. I'd just like you to know that the fellow who's at the podium is crystal clear no matter what he says.
you.
So, and I think all the people on Zoom were able to hear most everything, unless you were muted, okay?
Thanks,
Just thought you
Virginia.
might like the feedback.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you, Virginia, appreciate that. And Tom is crystal clear because he's an attorney.
Thank you.
He's efficient.
All right, I have a motion.
Second.
I got a second from Rosie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks so much.